So that's kind of where we're going for the next 3 weeks. The reason that I am not going to be up here for the next 2 weeks, a lot of you know this, but my lovely wife, Alex, is 39 weeks pregnant. Woo! Some of you are saying, I saw her. How on earth is she 39 weeks pregnant? I look at a cheeseburger and I get bigger than she is. But she is 39 weeks pregnant, and so here in the next week or so, we are expecting the arrival of baby Cameron Joe, our second daughter. So I've had a lot of people ask me, Cameron, where'd you get that name? Was it a baby book? Is it a family name? Yes. So some of you know our first daughter is named Grayson. And there's, normal Methodist preachers, most Methodist preachers will name their children, Grace and Wesley and Esther and Habakkuk and all the other minor prophets. I'm not a normal Methodist preacher, and so Grayson, our first, is named after the great Duke villain Grayson Allen. And Cameron is named after the cathedral, don't hiss, brings about more hisses. Cameron is named after the Cathedral of Duke basketball, Cameron Indoor Stadium. So that's it. Right? If we had boys, we'd have Kyle and Reed and Olsen and Johnny. Y'all are rowdy tonight. So that's kind of where we're going to be. So we're in that really on edge stage right now. That if you've had children, you know kind of where we're at. It could be any sort of moment that we got to get going. So we've got our bags packed. Alex put air in the tires today. Yes, good. We have air in the tires. I think we have enough gas. We're going down to Houston to give birth. We are ready. The room is ready. The stuff is ready. Alex is taking care of all of that. I take no credit for any of that. But we are ready to go because we know at any time it could be go time. And we don't really know what that's going to look like. We do have a scheduled induction for Monday, but that doesn't work well for this illustration, so forget that I said that. We don't know. We don't know when it's going to happen. And we don't really know the details about what's going to happen. We don't know. She could go into labor right now. For the love of God, please don't. Just don't. It could be when we're asleep. It could be when we're at a restaurant. It could be when this cold front blows in tomorrow. I'm really scared of that. We don't know when it's going to happen, and we don't know what it's going to look like. Hopefully there is a doctor present. We've got one tonight, so we're in good shape. Hopefully we get to the hospital, and it's all normal, and it's all good. We don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know the details of what it's going to happen. We just know that it's going to happen. And we've all been in situations like that before. You've been waiting for a phone call about a job or about getting into the school of your dreams. You know it's going to happen. You don't know what it's going to look like, and you don't know when it's going to come, but you know it's going to happen. Maybe you've waited for meeting that right person, that you know that it's going to happen. You just don't know when. You don't know how. You don't know who they are or where they are or why they haven't come and found you yet. But you know it's going to happen. You know something is going to happen. You don't know when, and you don't know the details. So, as this is kind of my last sermon on this heaven series, that's the message that I want to give to you tonight. Is that when it comes particularly to the end times, the end of all things, when the trumpets sound, we know it's going to happen. We don't know when it's going to happen, and by and large, we don't know what it's going to look like when it does happen, but we know that it will happen, and we can take a lot of hope and a lot of courage in that. And so I mentioned trumpets. We've called this sermon Trumpets. Throughout the Old and the New Testament, this is what the biblical authors will talk about when it comes to the end time. It's this image of a trumpet, and we'll talk about what that means towards the end of the sermon, but it's an inauguration of something new. And so when we talk about these trumpets, when we talk about these end times, there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of difficulty. And I know for a lot of us, this entire heaven series has been kind of like that. I've had countless people come up to me and say, I really like this series, I'm learning a lot, but honestly, I'm leaving with a lot more questions than I have answers. And if that's you tonight, I'm going to tell you, you're in a good place. We've done our job. 1 Corinthians 15, and I'll read verses 51 through 58. It says this: Behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised imperishable, and we shall be changed. For this perishable body must put on the imperishable, and this mortal body must put on immortality. When the perishable puts on the imperishable, and the mortal puts on the immortality, then shall come to pass the saying that is written, Death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting? We'll actually end there. So Paul here has packed in a lot of different teaching and a lot of different concepts and ideas that are pretty confusing into a few short verses. So don't get caught up in this confusing immortality, mortality, perishable, imperishable language. What he's trying to do is to give us hope that when the last trumpet comes, we will all be brought up, those in Christ Jesus, and it will be awesome. Death will be defeated. It will have no sting. God will have the victory, and that's what he's saying, to put our hope in. But that very first phrase is what I want to dwell on for just a moment. He says, Behold, I tell you a mystery. He packs a lot of basic truths into the end times and his description of it, but perhaps the most fundamental is this, that it's a mystery. It's a mystery. Much of our faith is a mystery, including what's going to happen in the final day. And I know that for many of us, that creates a lot of uneasiness. We're the kind of people, we're the kind of culture, we're the kind of society that we've got to know everything. And the good news is that we've got a square in our pocket that can tell us every answer to all of life's questions. And when we don't get an answer to something, we have a hard time paying attention to what's at hand. I don't know if you've had this experience. I have it all the time. I don't get to watch much TV unless it's Sesame Street or Bolt, which is a Disney movie that is on repeat at our house. I don't get to watch a lot of TV, but when I do watch TV, something happens to me all the time. It's probably happened to you. You're watching a movie or a Netflix show, and somebody comes up on the screen, and you recognize that person. You say, "Oh, that's that guy from." He's in the. And then what? You try to watch the movie, but you can't concentrate on it. Does this happen to anybody else? Am I alone here? And so, I got a no back there. Thank you. I'm going to preach to the right folks over here. So, when that happens, what do? I can't pay attention to the movie anymore. The movie and my attention span is gone. What do I have to do? I have to pull up my phone. I have to pull up IMDb to figure out who on earth that person is and what I know them from. I become so uneasy in the mystery that I can't focus on what is at hand. And so I know for a lot of us here tonight with this Heaven series, if you do have more questions than you've been given answers, you can become uneasy and think, why am I even doing any of this? Or maybe that's not you. Maybe all of the questions and all of the mystery have led you to a different place. I had a conversation with Missy Holloway, who's our director of Connection Ministries here at the church. A big reason why I am at this church is Missy Holloway. And she's gotten to the point now, she's leading a group, she's studying hard, she's really, really working hard. But she said, you know what? I believe in Jesus. I'm not going to do her accent because I'm going to butcher it. She's like, I believe in Jesus. I do the best I can. I know I'm going to heaven. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I know I'm going to be there and it's going to be awesome. Hey, if that's where you're at, you're in a great place. Because that recaptures this element of mystery. And I think this element of mystery is so important to our faith. We have to recapture the beauty of mystery. We worship God in awe and in wonder. And if we just pack our mind full of facts, then we're never going to be able to fully understand who He is, because we can never fully understand. But when we gaze at the stars, when we look out on a beautiful sunset, when we see a baby in our hands, we can give God glory and praise and worship Him in awe and in wonder because we don't understand it. See, Christianity is not a list of 5 basic truths that are 100% provable. It's not this dogmatic system that you've just got to get into your mind these 5 things and then that's the life of faith. That's a boring life of faith, and that's not what faith is all about. Nobody has a religion based around 2 + 2 = 4. Nobody gives glory to E = mc². There isn't a religion centered around gravity. Why? These are all basic knowable truths. And unfortunately, God is not a basic knowable truth. We worship him and we believe in him, but by faith, we worship him and we believe in him knowing that he is mystery, that he is beauty, that he is awe, that he is wonder, that his graces and his glory are unsearchable and unknowable, and all we can get is glimpses. Albert Einstein, he was a smart dude. He put it like this. He said, the most beautiful thing that we can experience is the mysterious. It's the source of all true art and science. He to whom the emotion is a stranger, who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe, is as good as dead. His eyes are closed. The insight into the mystery of life, coupled though it be with fear, he says, has also given rise to religion. To know what is impenetrable to us really exists, manifesting itself as the highest wisdom and the most radiant beauty, which all of our dull faculties can comprehend only in their most primitive forms. This knowledge, this feeling, is at the center of all true religiousness. He says religion isn't about cramming our minds full of knowledge. It's about experiencing the mysterious. It's about getting captured and wrapped up in that awe and in that wonder. And the good news is that our Bible, time and time again, says that the things of God are a mystery. The kingdom of heaven is described as a mystery. God's will is described as a mystery. Paul in Ephesians 3:4 even describes Christ himself as a mystery. And again, if you're like me, and one of the primary ways I worship God is by studying and reading and learning, then that can make us uneasy. But I think about it like this. Our 2-year-old Grayson, named after the Duke guy, is in gymnastics. Stop. She's in gymnastics. It's a mystery why a 2-year-old needs to go to gymnastics, but she is in gymnastics. And we go out to power sports up there on Highway 30. And if you've ever been to that mecca of color, it's an amazing place. So they've got slides, and they've got foam pits, and they've got trampolines, and they've got colored everything. And the first time I went with Alex and Grayson to gymnastics, I tried for just a moment to capture some of the beauty that a child must see. Because we walk in and I immediately kind of put on my parent hat and identify all the death traps. But a child walks in mystery and wonder and imagination, and see a slide that takes you to another world, that sees a trampoline that'll shoot you to a sky, that sees a ball pit that might be filled with unicorns and puppies. And so I tried just for a moment to recapture that childlike wonder. And that's the same kind of wonder that we've got to take with faith, and that we've got to take with the end times and the heavens as well. We've got to say, I don't fully grasp it, but I'm going to put on a childlike faith and just for a moment think about its beauty and imagine what it might be. And Jesus tells us to do this in Matthew 18. He says, at the time the disciples came to Jesus and they said, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And calling to him a child, he put him on the midst of them and said, truly I say to you, unless you become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. We've got to recapture the mystery of our faith. When we do that, when we admit that we can't know it all, then we can go deeper into who God is. So if this series has confused the tar out of you, great. God says the kingdom of heaven belongs to you. Now, I do want to talk tonight about the end times. So, I don't have a ton of time remaining, so this is going to be a very condensed version. I'm going to tell you a lot more about what I don't believe than what I do believe. Again, knowing that I approach it as this is a mystery that is not fully knowable. So this is really just for me so I can know how much I need to explain. How many of you grew up in a church that talked about the rapture? Have hands up? Okay, a fair amount. How many of you, and there's no shame if you don't know this, this is really just for me. How many of you, when I say rapture, you know what that means? Okay, about a half, maybe a little more than that. Okay, so what I want to do right now is have real talk about Revelation, okay? With this in mind, that there are a lot of different teachings, there's a lot of different ways of thinking. So when I give this opinion, when I give what I believe the scriptures are showing, this is coming from Daniel. This is not becoming on behalf of the church or behalf of our staff. This is my small brain trying to explain the deep mysteries of God that are unexplainable. So my first real exposure to Revelation was, and this end times theories, was when my father decided that he was going to read the Bible. So grew up going to church. My dad was very much like me, very goal-oriented, task-oriented, Enneagram 3 for you weirdos out there who care about that kind of stuff. Very task-oriented. So when he set out to read the Bible, he wasn't going to do the Bible in a year thing or a verse a day. He was going to read the Bible cover to cover. So it took him about a month, which is just phenomenal. And so he finishes it after a month, and I go to my dad, and I say, Dad, what did you learn? For somebody to sit down and read the entire Bible in a month, surely there's some good, deep stuff that you can impart on me, oh great Father of mine. And he said, well, son, it was good. Great, good. 4 out of 5 stars. He said, it was good. I enjoyed it. The only thing I'm really thinking about now, and all I know is that whenever John wrote Revelation, he was definitely smoking something. Now, maybe you have not been so bold as to say that, but if you have opened the pages of Revelation, my guess is you've probably thought something similar. What on earth is going on here? You've maybe felt the mysteries of God. Now, throughout time, people, biblical scholars and theologians and just your regular lay folk like us have really wondered, what do we do with this book? Now, I believe that Revelation is the inspired, infallible, God-breathed word that is for us, useful for teaching and correction and reproof. I believe that. But I also believe that depending on how we read Revelation, we can get some really dangerous interpretations. And not just Revelation, but Daniel and the apocalyptic parts of Paul's letters and the apocalyptic parts of the Gospels as well. And really it all comes down to a divide of how literal or how metaphorical do we read the words of these apocalyptic books. So, there's one very popular way of reading the end times prophecy, that takes a lot of stuff pretty literally. So I'm going to give you a really condensed version. If this bores the tar out of you, you can check the Astros score now, and I'm not going to get offended. Are they winning? How do you know that? Let me give you a really condensed version of a end times theory called end times prophecy. It's a way of reading the Bible. You hear it described as a lot of different things. It's called Darbyism. It's called pre-tribulation, premillennialism. It's called dispensationalism. Are some of these words familiar? Some of you just eyes glazed over, so check the Astros score. So what happened is that in the mid-1800s, there was an Irish scholar named James Darby. And James Darby was in a prayer meeting one evening, and he had the revelation of God come upon him that gave him this outline, this theory of the end times. Now, let me just say, he was the first one to develop this idea. If 1,850 years of Christians did not come up with this idea, and God gives a revelation, my red flags go off. That's just me. So he comes up with this theory that kind of developed, particularly in Texas and on the West Coast as well, that developed into dispensationalism, premillennialism, things like that. The basic theory is this. The world is getting increasingly bad. Wars are happening. Bad people are doing bad things more and more and more. The world is going to be on a steady decline until one day Jesus is going to come back. He's going to rapture, which means that if you believe in Jesus, you are physically rescued from this world. You go up to reign with Jesus in heaven for 7 years, called the tribulation. In the tribulation, everyone left behind faces for 7 years what's called the tribulation, which is all the bad stuff, all the wrath of God poured out on them. After those 7 years, Jesus and the church return to reign for 1,000 years before the new heavens and the new earth. Now, that is a theory that many churches will teach as gospel truth. Did some of you grow up in churches like that? That was just gospel truth? I'm gonna be careful here. I do not believe in that way of reading the end times. You're welcome to. I do not believe in that way of reading the end times. If you want to know why, let's grab coffee. One of my main things is that I don't think we as Christians should believe that the world is getting worse and worse and worse and then Jesus will return. Because if that's the case, then why do we have any reason to go out and share the gospel and feed the hungry and do good things for good people? If we wanted to get it really bad and we want Jesus to come back, let's stop doing anything and just wait around for Jesus to come back. I have a hard time viewing our faith that way. I also have a hard time reading the rapture in the scriptures. There's two primary scriptures that people who espouse this theory will give. One's in 1 Thessalonians. The other is when Jesus talks about a farmer being snatched up. This is where they get this language. That was not read in the text, again, for almost 19 centuries. I have a hard time seeing that in the text, and I would love to break that down for you another time. Just know that when it comes to those theories of the end time, that to me take the mystery and the wonder out of Jesus' return. When it comes to those theories of the end times, Christians have not always believed that. The United Methodist Church doesn't officially believe that. And your boy, Daniel Lumpee, doesn't either. Now, I don't know what the end times are going to look like. And I'm a little bit weary of anyone who says it's abundantly clear in Scripture what will happen. But what I do want to give you, because I've just said mystery and I've just said this isn't true, so I've left you with nothing. I want to leave you with 3 things that we do know that all Christians will believe these 3 things about the end of the age. The first one is this: Jesus is coming back. Jesus is coming back. Now, we don't know when that's going to happen. A lot of the dispensationalist camp will predict that. There's actually a Wikipedia article that is called List of Dates Predicted for Apocalyptic Events. In my lifetime, enough to warrant getting on this Wikipedia list, there have been 53. They have all been wrong. My favorite is looking through that list, and it gives the person that came up with that date how many of them appear multiple times. Just give up, man. You lost. We don't know when Jesus will return. Jesus himself, as he sat on the Mount of Olives, Matthew 24, the disciples came to him privately, and they said, "Hey, we're your friends. Will you tell us when these things will be? And what the sign of your coming and the end of the age?" And Jesus answered them, and he said, "See that no one leads you astray. For many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Christ,' and they will lead many astray. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, the kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are but the beginning of the birth pains. No one knows the date or the time." Jesus is coming back, but we don't know when. That's the first thing. The second thing that we know that we can grasp onto is this. We know that there will be a new heaven and a new earth. Revelation 21 One of my favorite passages in all of Scripture. It says, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth have passed away, and the sea was no more." The sea was a symbol of mystery and of fear and of terror and of everything bad. "And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne, saying, 'Behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be any mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away.'" God is preparing a new heavens and a new earth where we will bodily be for eternity. I think we will eat. I think we will have jobs. I think it will be a lot of the good stuff of this earth just remade and perfected. John Wesley had a really good argument that said there's going to be animals. Do all dogs go to heaven? Maybe. Not cats. We know that there will be a new heavens and a new earth, and we will dwell there, and there will be no pain and suffering and cancer and divorce, and evil will be thrown into the sulfur fire forever. We will only have joy. That's the second thing we know. The third thing that we know in the midst of all the mystery is that we know that God wins. We know that God wins. I've always compared this to a football game. I can go back and all day on repeat watch the Alabama game from 2012. Because I know what's going to happen. Even when Johnny steps back, runs into his lineman, pops up in the air, throws around, I know Ryan Swope is standing right there wide open in the end zone. Hallelujah, it's a victory. It may be a little bit different on Saturday. Because we may have an idea, but we don't know who's going to win. And so as we watch that game, we'll shout and we'll scream and we'll whoop and we'll get excited, and then we'll probably get really, really sad, and we're all waiting for that outcome because we don't know what it's going to be. Listen, in the grand scheme of the universe, in the grand scheme of the world, it's 2012 Alabama. We know who wins in the end. And it's God. God wins over evil. Satan is vanquished. Evil is done. On the cosmic level, God has won. On your individual experience, God has the victory. We don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know when that final buzzer will ring, but we've got to be ready. That trumpet that sounds is a sound of victory. And when Jesus comes back, that trumpet will sound, and death will be no more, and pain will be no more. He will claim the victory. So friends, tonight, what's keeping you from claiming that victory now? God's defeated your sin. God's defeated your addiction. God's defeated that thing that keeps you from Him. Claim that victory. The battle's been won. We know how the story ends. Claim that victory before the trumpet sounds. It could be tomorrow. It could be a year from now. It could be a million years from now. We don't know, but what we do know is this: in the cross, in the shed blood, in the empty tomb of Jesus Christ, we have the victory. And that is no mystery. God, for all the things